Hi, good evening. Welcome back to my live stream. And tonight we are continuing our series debunking mainstream media myths regarding the IDAHO4 and the case against Bryan Kohberger. And I just want to say thank you to the live chat for patiently waiting as we got started. And I just want to say thank you to my mods also for being here and keeping the chat classy tonight. And let's get started. So before we get started, I wanted to remind you of the different myths that we debunked last week. I should probably say hi. So I'm going to just read down really quickly everything that we went over last week so that you can remember what we've already covered. And if you have questions about them, just go ahead and ask in the live chat. So last week, the first thing we debunked was Bryan Kohberger dined at the Mad Greek, and that also the Mad Greek was a vegan restaurant. We also debunked that the police found an ID of one of the victims in the Pennsylvania raid of Bryan Kohberger's parents' house. We debunked the myth that BK was fired from WSU. We also debunked the myth that BK had no friends, girlfriends, or / was an incel or had incel behaviors. We also debunked the mainstream media myth that the police were purposely pulling BK over in Indiana in those 2 drug interdiction stops, but that it was they were purposely pulling him over to take a look at his hands to see if they had scars. We debunked that. We also debunked the myth that Bryan Kohberger's sister sent a Reddit post in claiming that he was doing illicit drugs with another person who is now deceased and can't defend themselves. And so anyway, that was another mainstream media myth that was widely circulated, and we debunked that. We also debunked the XR account, which included the visual snow and the BK rap, sadly, things that we've studied a lot on this channel that have been now debunked. We debunked that Bethany and Dylan went out and got matching tattoos after the crime. And then lastly, last week, we debunked the photography club having a video of a naked woman running by the King Road home at 2:00 in the morning, the morning of the crime. So those were some, that took about 2 hours to get through that list. And tonight we could go that long, but I think we could get our list done tonight in about an hour. But we probably should get right into it. Oh, hey, AR's here. Hey, AR.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you jumped up.
Well, I thought I'd come in and say hello and spend a little time with you and hear your thoughts firsthand. So,
thanks. I saw your video earlier today, and I'm actually glad you're up here. I had a question for you. It was like the first time I've heard anyone say this, but you were talking about BK in his parents' kitchen the morning of the raid. You said something about a green substance was what BK might have been at the kitchen table with. I thought that was an interesting take on that. Have you heard that anywhere, or was that just a theory you were coming up with?
no, there's been numerous people that have made that statement. Whether it's true or not, who knows? They said that he was bagging up green leafy substances into small Ziploc bags to be dumped into neighbors' trash cans. And I just kind of chuckled, like, do you really think this guy's going to throw away, his weed? Or, I mean, what do you think he's doing here? But
that was interesting. I thought it was a good video. And just so you know, you guys, this video, you should go check out AR's channel. I'll put his handle up because the video did really well. Like, I think it got like 5,000 views in the first 24 hours or something. So it's definitely worth the watch, you guys.
it's doing well. And I've got a follow-up video to that one in regards. I'm going to do a 3-part series in regards to the oddities of the case. Beginning tonight is prosecutorial misconduct, and then I'll go into video 2 will be the defense side of oddities, and then Video 3 will actually be oddities from an outside view of victims' families, mainstream media, and of course social platforms. So I'm going to break down and have actual terminology from law books and different cases involved in every one, so I can give a little bit of ideas and receipts to what I'm actually talking about. So
Oh,
just
Robert
kind of a
Scott.
heads up.
That's I can't wait to see that. And yeah, so anyway, I put your channel handle at the bottom, and please, if you guys have never checked out AR's channel, go subscribe. And welcome Robert with True Crime Podcast. How are you tonight? Robert?
Is he with us?
Yeah.
Is he on mute?
I'm doing okay.
Right.
How you guys? How you doing, brother?
We're all here. The team's all up on panel. It's good to have all of us back together here for a little while, huh?
Yeah, we got the band back together. So, and I'm glad you guys
I did
I'm sorry, Robert.
yeah. No, I was gonna say the other night I did a live on the Sonia Massey case. AR, have you? Yeah, that's the one where the officer shot her. Yeah,
I've
because
heard of it, but
she called she had called 911 because there was she was hearing noises outside, so she called 911. The sheriff's officer showed up, and they like literally told her to go take the boiling water off the stove. She had the boiling water, and she was taking it off the stove, and one of the officers, Sean, pulled his gun out on her and told her to drop the water after he had told her to take it off the stove. And she was walking towards the sink, and he was yelling at her to drop the water, drop the water. So she was getting down. She was getting down on the floor, and he shot her in the head.
it's crazy.
It's
Sorry,
a very
Swamp.
sad case, brother. It really is.
Swamp, don't let us interrupt here. Let's get on with your topic. Robert, you and I will talk about that more, and I'll definitely check out
Yep.
your video. But Swamp has a plan live here, and I'm kind of excited to let her get on with it.
Oh yeah.
It was Matt.
Unless she wants to stay on pause or on mute for the next hour.
Yeah, how about I stay on mute? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was just but anyway, I'm glad you guys are here, because I really think you're going to be interested in what we're bringing to the table. This first debunking, I have to say, okay, so recently there's been a lot of talk about sources and stuff. And I will say, when I first started this case, I took a lot of sources and I pushed several stories that have absolutely no corroboration. And so right now, tonight, I want to debunk my own stories, and two of them right now. And one of them happens to be, we're going to debunk Kaylee's LinkedIn, which was something I featured in so many live streams and something that I talked about a lot. Gosh, hold on, I don't think. I just want to make sure this is the right video.
This is the most important video I've ever made on the.
Okay, we got to go back. Yeah, I got to go to the other video. Let me just go back. This is the one.
It was Maddie who actually said that. So Maddie said it, and it was kind of like more mentioning, like motioning to Kaylee too, like who was right next to her. So you could tell that like they obviously all were trying to keep Kaylee safe. They just said, yeah, one of our friends and motioning to Kaylee that she'd been stalked recently. And it's not just a one-off thing, that this is apparently something that Kaylee had tons of issues with. Apparently she always had somebody who's constantly walking behind her like that. So, and it was more so at nighttime when they were out there drinking and stuff like that. Because I asked him, like, is it at school? And she's like, no, when I'm at night, going out to the bars or coming back from the bars. And again, living down that way,
Fast forward a little.
Anywhere, nobody would notice anything if a car was parked up there for a killer to go down and do what.
Here,
so there.
Okay. Got a couple more things to show you. So I brought up the Chronicles of Olivia. So this is Chronicles of Olivia. We're looking at this one right here. I didn't play this in my last video, but I summarized it. But I actually want to play it for you today. It's only a minute.
46 days since the brutal murders and still no suspect. One of the victims' family members shares with me a new clue. Kaylee Gonzalez's sister Olivia shares with me something she found disturbing on the day of the murders. Here's a screenshot of Kaylee's LinkedIn account. Notice how Kaylee's account was active at 11:33 p.m. on November 13th. This was 12 hours after the 911 call was made, and her account was deactivated.
The content is unwanted or harmful. But I mean, obviously, I didn't open it.
Olivia also shows me an email where she messaged Moscow PD and asked them why they deleted Kaylee's LinkedIn. They replied and said it was illegal for them to do that, and it was not them. So the big question is, who was logged into Kaylee's LinkedIn, and why was it deleted? Kaylee had other social media accounts. Why her LinkedIn? It just doesn't make sense. What do you think?
Okay. You know, and I'll let the video play in the background because there's a lot of nice footage of the girls in this particular video. But so do you guys remember this story, the LinkedIn account? Robert and AR, did either of this?
Yeah, I completely remember it. One reason why I remembered so well is I thought to myself, your sister just got her life taken from her and you're worried about a damn LinkedIn account. That didn't make sense to me. But
Yeah, same here.
you know, I was just kind of like, you noticed just out of the blue that's what came to mind. Your sister's gone. You all should be grieving, but instead you're talking about the LinkedIn account is missing and gone. Okay, that's odd. But I mean, I also know, do you guys have LinkedIn by any chance?
Not
No,
anymore.
I do not.
Okay. Have you ever realized how hard it is to get rid of a LinkedIn account?
Oh, it's
Like
impossible.
it's not just, you can't just like get rid of it. So for them to come out and say like it's there 1 minute, the next minute it's gone, it's like, there's something odd about that. But you know, there's so much odd about it. I don't even know what else to say. So I'll let you guys say it. How do you guys feel?
Well, so, all right. So I think what I should do for the sake of the story, and I'm going to fast forward this. I really want footage of the girls while we're talking. So how the story went was like this. My understanding, originally, the Chronicles of Olivia version that we just saw, we saw a short version of that. So my understanding is Olivia, originally when they were telling the story, was driving from LA to Moscow. And while she was driving, Kaylee's LinkedIn account popped up on her phone, like a social media alert popped up saying Kaylee was live on her LinkedIn. And so Olivia saw this and pulled over. And by the time she was pulled over, the LinkedIn account was erased. And this was the night of the murders. So she was driving, saw it go live, pulled over. By the time she pulled over, it was erased. And I mean, I almost feel like we should watch the 1 minute short one more time, because here's the thing is she debunked it. I don't know where the misunderstanding was, but it's, I'll show you the post. I didn't play this in my last video, but this was a mainstream media, this was a big story. I mean, we saw it reported on every main YouTube channel. We saw it in People. We saw it in
46 days since the brutal murders and still no suspect. One of the victims' family members shares with me a new clue. Kaylee Gonzalez's sister Olivia shares with me something she found disturbing on the day of the murders. Here's a screenshot of Kaylee's LinkedIn account. Notice how Kaylee's account was active at 11:33 p.m. on November 13th. This was 12 hours after the 911 call was made, and her account was deactivated.
The content is unwanted or harmful. But I mean, obviously, I didn't open it.
Olivia also shows me an email where she messaged Moscow PD and asked them why they deleted Kaylee's LinkedIn. They replied and said it was illegal for them to do that, and it was not them. So the big question is, who was logged into Kaylee's LinkedIn, and why was it deleted? Kaylee had other social media accounts. Why her LinkedIn? It just doesn't make sense. What do you think?
So on this photograph right here, this is the most important one. So these are the screenshots. I have all the screenshots. I've gone over this so many times. So the first thing is when you look at this green button that says, this green little marking that's been circled that says that you're live, there's something different about this than the normal active status. So let me show you this clip. So when asked about this, oh, I have to delete a picture. It's not going to let me upload it. Hold on. I cannot believe I have 100 pictures inside StreamYard. So this right here is a, where's my phone? Is a thread that talks about Olivia's post. I'm pulling it up on my phone because it's just easier to read. So if you look over here, I don't know if I can't zoom in on this, but if you can see at the top, when somebody, so basically it says like this, this thread was made on the Idaho murders Reddit thread. And the person says to Amanda over here, this is filled in green circle. The filled in green circle there at the top means that you're live, okay? And then the one at the bottom means your connection is available on your mobile. And that's what Kaylee's had. So it just meant that her phone was available for it. And then the other part about the link, and then it goes on to say, this is Ellie Flowers who posted this. She says, Olivia posted in one other group a while ago saying she was incorrect regarding the active status and didn't actually mean she was currently active. And then the other part of this, which was kind of a debunking, is when the post came out, they said the account was deleted that night. And apparently that was just an inaccurate reporting as well, because we saw screenshots after the night of the crime of that account. So if it was deleted, it wasn't deleted that night. So I thought this was like a really good way to start the show, because I think it's a clear thing that we can debunk, that everyone can see with their own eyes. You know, mistakes sometimes get made. Things happen. And so here we are. But anyway, do you guys have any thoughts on this? Anything you want to add to what I'm showing you right here? Or?
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying. Mistakes are made, but let me ask you a question. Is it okay if the mistakes are intentional? Or do we feel like the mistakes are just literally mistakes? Because I feel like right from the get-go, a lot of the mistakes that were seen as maybe just, oh, wow, that's really weird, that's a mistake, was actually intentional. Because they sure played that out really hard, even sitting at a table as a family, flipping the phone around for all to see. Oh, look, the LinkedIn account is gone. Look, the LinkedIn account is gone. That's intentional to me. That's not a mistake. That's intentional.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. Yeah, I agree with you. I believe it was intentional too.
It's a very early sign of pushing a narrative. That's just my thoughts. Because if you remember at the beginning of this case, before anybody was arrested, while the investigation was going on, the big platforms like Facebook and everybody was deep diving into it. Of course, we had all the melee going on about who was interacting on social media, especially Facebook. That was, people were starting to call Papa Rogers. This guy has to be involved in the crime. So now we're all being led to believe that somebody with digital capabilities or even computer capabilities, maybe hacking capabilities, all of this is involved in this case. And all of a sudden we've got a content creator that's literally putting a narrative out hey, look, her LinkedIn account has been removed. This is her stalker. This is the person involved. He's got the capabilities to even cyber attack the media and everything, on her capabilities. He's been watching her from every angle. This is all a narrative push. And that's why, Swamp, I don't mean to discredit your thoughts of, hey, mistakes do happen. Of course they do. We all know that. We've all even personally made them ourselves. I've made so many mistakes. Of course, mistakes happen. But guess what? Narratives get pushed too. And those mistakes that we want to just kind of write off and say, hey, we forgive you, we know mistakes happen, could legitimately be intentional and just driving a narrative, because we're still seeing it happen today by the very same people. Just a thought.
I'll tell you, I've wondered about leaks for a long time. I've wondered, are we getting actual information leaks, or are we getting, are we getting leaks from people involved in the case? Now, a lot of these leaks we've been able to debunk just by the facts that have been presented in court documents. They just can't be real. But where are they coming from? And the other question I have is, with the change of venue, I mean, is some of that going to be obvious? And I don't know. But I understand what you're saying. I'm just refraining from outright, throwing accusations out there. But yeah. Twiz says he never makes a mistake. Sorry, take it off.
Well, and that's one thing I want to make real clear too, Swamp, is I don't want anybody to feel like I'm pointing a finger or making accusations at anybody, because in all honesty, when I make an accusation against somebody, I point the finger right directly at them, and I use their name, and I even call them out in the accusation, giving them the opportunity to come with me and speak upon whatever they want to speak upon. So I'm not accusing. I'm just making a statement that I feel like this just seems to be more intentional than just a simple mistake. That's all. Because when have any of them, think about it, come out and said, hey, by the way, the LinkedIn account was never erased. It's actually still right here. We just made the mistake in speaking upon that. Here it is. Our bad. None of them have come out and taken ownership of anything. And I guarantee you that they just won't. Where I think any one of the three of us that sit right here on the panel, and many within our community, when we make a mistake, we come forward and we own up to it. We say, this is what we did. This is what was wrong about it. And we're going to, own up to it. We're going to move forward. So I don't know. I mean, it's just quite odd.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm getting some actual additional information on this in LinkedIn. And I do have these screenshots, but they're pointing some things out, which was a lot of these documentations that were being shown were actually done on November 3rd. And you can see, I'll take down this photo. You can see it so I don't know what to make of this, but what I will say is, since this story is fake, at least somebody has come out and said it's incorrect. It's, wow. And here's the other thing too, is there was a comment I starred right here in the live chat from Lorraine. And she said, didn't the cops have her phone? Yes, they would delete it if something could point the finger at them. And I'm just, I didn't know who you meant by them, if it was the police or her, but the one thing we will say is that's not going to fly for any of them. And you cannot fake those forensics on the phone. Like, there are forensic downloads of those phones. So we will know if something got deleted. You can't hide that. I hope I.
Now, do we know if the cops still have her phone, or did the G's get it back finally?
Gosh, I don't know. As far as I know, last I knew, and I think it might have been from you, Robert, you reported she hadn't returned yet from I think you heard it in an interview, maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, brother. I mean, is it weird if they keep just Kaylee's phone, but the rest of the phones are given back to the family? Like Xana's phone was given back to her dad. Ethan's phone was given back to his parents. Maddie's phone was given back to, I don't know if it was Ben or if it was her mom. But Kaylee's phone is the only one that the G said is still in an evidence bag.
Well, the number one thing I would, before I make my statement in regards to something I know, I'm going to ask you, Robert, how do you know all those phones were returned?
It was in the interview I watched. It was a Brian Enton thing. He was talking about how all the phones were returned to the specific families except for Kaylee's, and he was talking to Steve and Christy at the time.
Well, I can tell you right now, I know that they have approaching 20 cell phones, numerous laptops, numerous computers, and many other electrical devices still in the possession of law enforcement. I can't tell you whose they are or why they're still holding them, but I know they have a large amount of them still in holding. Wow. And I know that the two surviving roommates' phones are still being held. So, I don't know who's got their stuff back. I don't know why Kaylee's parents wouldn't have. They could have possibly gotten it back and they just misstated something in one of their interviews, because unfortunately we've noticed some misstatements that do happen. Maybe it's a mistake. Who knows? We'll sum it up as misstatements. And this only comes from personal experience from a past of where they've kept digital or electronic devices of mine in cases, is because they knew there was evidence on those. There was something there, whether it be a correspondence, whether it be a Google search, whether it be a social platform conversation, Google Maps, whatever, they felt as though could help them in their investigation. They would keep it and they would hold it. And it never gets returned till after the trial. So if they still have Kaylee's digital device, her cell phone, it's because it's going to be returned after the trial. So
now, do we know if this conference that the new judge is wanting on the, I think it's the 26th, the 28th. Do we know if it's going to be streamed or?
Yes.
From what I understand, all I know is it's a status hearing. So I would probably make the statement. It will be 10 minutes or less within the courtroom. It won't be long.
Well,
so we'll see. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be streamed, because I believe I saw somebody was even posting the new streaming, whatever it is. I don't even know where it's going to be streamed. Guys, I've literally been in the hospital a couple of days. I'm working with the surgical team. I'm going to, here in the next week or two, go and let them drill into my skull to try to relieve some pressure and get some blood out of there. And maybe they'll pump some brains into my head while they're at it. Who knows? But so I've been kind of off the map in regards to what's happening within the new courtroom. I know that there's a status here, and I only know this because I called the court today to get some details of what's going on and how it's going to be happening, and whether somebody could be in the courtroom or not in the courtroom, or what's going on. So it's a status hearing. It's going to be getting caught up. From what I understand, they may get into some discussion in regards to the September 6th evidence deadline, but I'm not too sure if that's going to come up in this one or not.
That's interesting. And it's interesting to know that you were able to get somebody on the phone to answer some basic questions. That's good to know too.
I got more basic questions answered. I had a good in-depth conversation with somebody today from the courthouse for a little over 2 hours. It was a good conversation, and I learned a little bit of how to actually engage people within the court system, not so much as like a convict like I'm used to doing, but actually from a pedestrian side of things to get some info and then interact and get them laughing, and they'll give you a little more information than normal. So it was an interesting conversation in regards to what the court's expected to be like with Kohberger being there, whether whether it's going to be the same idea of what was happening in Latah County, and it's not going to be. It's not going to be the same structure of the way the court's handled. It's not going to be the same structure when it comes to the cameras and the interaction within the courtroom. There's going to be a few differences. So, I wanted to. One of the reasons why I was trying to get as much information as I could is because I want to get up there and do my best to try and attend some of these upcoming hearings, depending on, how I can get some of this medical stuff going on. There's a really good doctor that I also want to visit that's up in the Seattle area. And I want to go have some conversation with them because they do some natural healing type stuff. So I figured while I was up there, maybe I could venture over to the courthouse and kind of see what's going on. So it would be kind of interesting. But I did learn a lot about the way that they're going to run that courtroom, at least to start. And then we'll see how the melee kind of makes that change. They're expecting it to be kind of a circus when it first gets started, because they're going back to the original, even allowing mainstream media into the courtroom. So they're going to be expecting it to be a little bit out of hand and chaotic to start. So we'll see.
Well, I'll be praying for you when you're getting that procedure done, brother. I always pray for you.
Appreciate it. We're hoping that a little bit of drilling works. I mean, we did have a good consult, and they were last night just going to go ahead and take a piece of my skull out and let the brain breathe a little bit. But of course, I instead of allowing that to move forward, checked myself out of the hospital so I could think about it. And then I came home and did a YouTube video. Imagine that. But so we'll see. We'll see where we're going to stand. We still have some discussions through the weekend that we're going to have, and kind of go from there. We'll see. I'm nervous to have anything drilled into my skull. That just seems a little nerve-wracking to me.
Well, if anyone has the strength and the courage to go through a procedure like that, AR, it's you. And so the people who will be working on you are some of the smartest, most intelligent people in our entire country. So you're in the best possible hands you could be in.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny because the doctor that would be doing it's from Massachusetts. He's just doing a residency here in Vegas. So it's like I have a little bit of connection to your neck of the woods there, Swamp, because I was also even thinking about relocating to Boston to visit with some of the best doctors that I've been able to hear of. It's kind of hard to talk about, but I'll give a little bit of insight. Like, I've lost full vision in my right eye now from the pressure on my brain. I lose my thoughts a little bit. I'm now wearing compression sleeves on my arms and on my hands because I'm having a hard time controlling the shakes and the various things going on. But, I don't want people to think like I'm just giving up or giving in. I'm not so much afraid of the health situation. I don't want Jen to feel like she has to take the weight of the world on her shoulders and handle all of this on her own, because she doesn't. I'm still here and I'm still fighting. So, and that's why I'm so dedicated to being around the YouTube and the YouTube community as much as I possibly can be, is because you guys are like family to me. And we get into some great discussions that keeps the mind idle. And we have a lot of fun doing this. So I'm definitely appreciative of everybody. I got to say thank you to everybody, not only on the panel here with me, but within the community itself and within the chat. just so much support, so much love. The care that goes towards my wife is just absolutely amazing. And that's the thing. I'm learning on the fly about how amazing all this is. And I actually sat down and changed a little bit of the writing I'm working on right now, to more of an inspirational or more of a positive outlook of finding freedom, going from a criminalistic mindset and a kind of depressed, this is the way life was of, abuse in the past, to now you've got freedom, you've got life. Why not take a road trip and go to the beach or just enjoy life and travel and meet people? And so even my thought process has changed a little bit. So just give everybody a little bit of a thought process there. But I know that's not true crime. I'm sorry to get you away from your topic there, but so
AR, I don't think that there's anything anyone else would rather know than, we all want to know about your health before we talk about other things. So I really appreciate it, and you coming on here and telling us. And I know what you're saying about finding the inspirational words. There are things that you can share with us that we just can't imagine. Those perspectives, please keep sharing those, because they're special and they're unique, and those things really do help people on a daily basis. The people you talk to in the true crime community, they're here every single day, so they need inspiration too. So anyway, I'm glad you're changing the tone of your videos, and or some of the videos you're adding to them, and yeah, I like the inspirational stuff.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to be, I'm creating an actual another channel that's going to be discussing more of the road path of how we can take, because I've had people reach out to me that are still struggling to make better decisions and stay out of the system and quit going to jail. And it's like, guys, look, I used to be right there. I used to be in that mindset, and I know what it's like. I know the devastation of it. And it's a choice. You have to choose freedom. You got to choose that you are better off within the community doing good than continuously just falling into the traps of your thought processes, or the things that you feel like you got to have, or you need to have, or are gonna get you locked up. And like, I got into a great discussion even with the lady at the court, in discussing Bryan Kohberger and the situation he's in within his incarceration there in Ada County. And it was like just such an amazing conversation to hear from her side, how they feel good about the fact that his case was brought to Ada County, and how they can offer him potentially a better chance at a fair trial. And it almost seemed as though the people that I spoke to within the courts were excited to give him that opportunity at a fair trial, which sounded cool to me. I was like, oh, that is cool, because you don't normally hear that.
Well, that's what you should be hearing for people who work in the judicial system. Like, they want to uphold the judicial system. It's really refreshing here, and it's nice to hear straight from a source that called them. As somebody says, that's interesting.
I mean, like, what's odd today, brother, is I was out and about, and one of my charges from 2004 was aggravated robbery, and it was on a person, not a business. I was out and about today, and I actually ran into that person. Now, I didn't say anything to them, but they walked up to me and said, "I forgive you."
Oh.
And I didn't know what to say.
That's an amazing story. And Robert, I'll kind of add to your amazing story that you bumped into. I finally made the decision right before I went to the hospital just a couple days ago, I called one of my victims of my past that I had been debating on talking to for years upon years, because I knew how much it devastated not only them, but the family. So I actually reached out and gave them a call, and they did the very same thing. They greeted me on the phone with open arms, and we had a good long discussion. And we're going to actually work together to put out like a little documentary video series of overcoming, the past of crime between an actual criminal and one of their victims, years upon years later, coming together to resolve the issue and talk and almost become friendly. I mean, it's kind of cool, but we're planning on doing a little bit of work together on that as well.
Cool.
Oh my gosh, that's like, that would be such edifying content. And I just, Robert, you must feel, that must be such a, I mean, even if you didn't even know if you had a weight on your shoulders, that must have felt so good to have somebody come up to you and offer forgiveness like that. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, because the crime happened in 2004, and I was at the gas station. I was at the Quick Trip over up at 61st, over up at 61st in the canal route today, and I saw them. I saw them at the gas pump about 3 over from me, and I just froze. I thought, oh crap.
Yeah.
And they looked right over at me, walked up to me, and I was expecting like a punch in the face from like 20 some odd years ago.
Right.
And they just looked at me and says, "I forgive you."
Dear God. That's beautiful.
And
That's really cool stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was speechless, and and they looked at me. They says, "It happened. I know it happened 20 years ago. I know it back then. You weren't in your right mind. I forgive you."
So beautiful.
That's very cool. That's great. That's great content. You gotta put that out there in some way and tell that story and let people live through that, because there's many people like you, like myself, and like many others out there that need a little bit of that redemption to rebuild the confidence and get past the negativity. And I really think people like yourself, Robert, could have a voice to really help people do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
amen. Amen. Oh, you guys are so great. I'm so glad you came on tonight, because there's people out here listening that need to hear this. And I just appreciate these stories. Thank you. And you know what? And just the thought that you guys are going to make that into content, that is going to make a difference. So I really hope you guys follow through and make some videos on these things.
I will.
I think it's important, because the only way people know it's real is if they can see it right before them and see not only, the story that you're trying to tell, but the results of what actually transpired, where you could bring in the fact, Robert, that's always a nervous feeling when you bump into a victim and you're face to face with them and you've done wrong, and that person was obviously turned and changed by the actions that we have. And for them to embrace you in the fact that they know you're making a pact to be better in life, and they'll support you in that, is a huge, huge showing for people out there that this could go a long way. And the more people that we can get on board with that is when we actually start to make a difference, because our voices aren't what's going to literally make the difference. It's the showing in people's lives that they too can enjoy that gratification that you got to enjoy today. That's what's going to make the difference. That's what's going to be what makes people want to do it and experience it themselves. So good job. I'm glad you handled it well. I'm glad you got to enjoy that. And, at the end of the day, I personally, when I think, and we can put this into perspective with a Bryan Kohberger type individual, depending on the way that this case goes, I hope he can also find some of that gratification, whether it be shaking the hands when he's found not guilty with the people that accused him, and he can move past it, or even if he is found guilty and he comes to the senses that, hey, look, I'm going to admit what I did and move forward, then maybe people can gravitate to him and forgive as well, because I think that's a part of life that needs to happen. Forgiveness and the embracing of someone that is willing to take responsibility for their actions. So good job, Robert. Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
And then the other thing I want to say is I think there's probably people out there who want to say, look, I'm sorry for what I've done, but they're scared to do so because they're scared that there's nobody who could find it in their hearts to forgive them. And what you did was just probably inspire a lot of people who want to, like you were saying, AR, you wanted to reach out to someone. They didn't approach you. You wanted to approach them and just say, look, you weren't asking for forgiveness. You were asking to say you're sorry. And then so it just shows two examples of where when you seek forgiveness, it can be, it's possible and it can be given. So, yeah, great. Thank you for sharing those, you guys. I appreciate that.
As we've interrupted your show.
Here, it's just you two. Should we get on to another debunking?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to set this one up, you guys. This is me debunking me. So this picture right here that we're looking at is Kaylee on her 21st birthday party. She looks so beautiful, I think. And Kaylee is at a bar called The Coug. And this is a really popular bar with U of I students. It's located right off of the WASU campus. It's about a 3-minute drive from campus housing. And so The Coug is like an under 21 kind of restaurant in the day. It's over 21 at night. And one of the activities they do is, on your birthday, you write your name on the wall. So that is Kaylee's name, her sorority, and which sorority it is. It actually is just an example of, we don't know. There's obviously, we've said there's no connection between the person accused and the victims, but just in general, like, this is not a good idea. Like, you should probably not write down where you're located or where your connections are on a public wall with your name if you're a beautiful young 21-year-old. Just saying. So anyway, the reason I brought this up is because, I've taken tips and leads from people I've talked to anonymously on YouTube as well. And one of them was from this picture. Now, of course, when I made my video, I was very, very clear. I was speculating, I was making a theory, and it was given to me by someone, anonymously. But this person did claim they had pretty close connections. So I put out this story and I brought all of this evidence to corroborate it. And I used a video by JLR. I used all sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip for you of the video I made, and then I'm going to debunk myself. And while you're watching it, AR and Robert, if you can find anything wrong with my story and point it out before I bring out the debunking material, that would be great too. So anyway, here we go. Let's listen to my completely fabricated story. Well, it's not fabricated, but my completely uncorroborated story I pushed on YouTube. This video got like 10,000 views.
The most important video I've ever made on the IDAHO4. I believe that the writing is on the wall.
So this photograph was taken, as I said, a couple of hours before the crime. Well, guess what? Everyone thought they saw Kaylee taking a selfie at the grub truck. I think this is her on the Be Real app. I think that whoever it is knew exactly her location. Look at this. Today we're going to continue the topic on whether Kaylee had a stalker or not. So before I begin, BK is innocent until proven guilty. Everything I'm about to say is speculation. It is guessing, hypothesis, generalizations, and assumptions. So that's, I mean, the one thing I will say is at least I say that disclaimer in the beginning before I go on saying a story. I make it clear I'm not getting this like from some sort of fact. So I'm just going to point that out before I completely spill this. Creators are saying that we're being manipulated with leaked info. To begin with, it's not what people are saying, it's what they're not saying. So I'm presenting this hypothesis because it fits the PCA. This theory could fit either way, with Kaylee being the target or Maddie, because after all, they were both there that night. So as Drip Drop said, the house So that was really weird. I'm bringing Robert back on. So all of StreamYard shut down while I was playing that, and it put an error message up and said StreamYard stopped and it's not your fault. So somebody tell me
What happened?
I don't know. I got this error message saying StreamYard has shut down. It's not your fault. I don't know. I'm going to try playing that video again. That was weird.
We lost AR.
The person who gave it to me said that they said they were an agent. I'm not going to say the name, but I'm just saying. Okay. Sorry to spread more rumors. Let me bring this video back up. On whether Kaylee had a stalker or not. Okay. So before I begin, BK is innocent until proven guilty. Everything I'm about to say is speculation. It is guessing, hypothesis, generalizations, and assumptions. Creators are saying that we're being manipulated with leaked info. To begin with, it's not what people are saying, it's what they're not saying. So I'm presenting this hypothesis because it fits the PCA. This theory could fit either way, with Kaylee being the target or Maddie, because after all, they were both there that night. So as Drip Drop said, the house could have been the target.
Now, do we actually know if the house was targeted or there was an individual that was targeted?
So let's begin at the beginning of this hypothesis, which I have built with a couple other people. And the story begins in Pullman, Washington. So BK moved to Pullman, Washington, and he got a job at WSU. Now, this is a total assumption, but I'm assuming that BK went to his normality of going to pubs after work and school. So over a year ago, the large true crime creator Annie Elise reported very early on that BK frequented many local pubs after he got out of study/school at DeSales University when he was back in Pennsylvania. JRL. According to JLR, BK is just a 3-minute drive from a very popular pub called The Coop. Sources say he likely frequented this pub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm just going to play you a little clip from when I explain Annie Elise and her theory on motive, so that we're on the same page. So we're skipping forward. So with that, let's just kind of change gears and let's start talking about motive. So there, and we're just tying all of this together. So apparently Kaylee and her friends also like to frequent the Coug. And this is a picture of Kaylee on her 21st birthday celebrating at this bar. And according to JLR Kaylee posted many Instagram pictures at the Coug as well. Okay. So right here, I have a copy of a breakdown of the search warrant. And I'm just going to read you some of these things. More importantly, I'm going to actually skip down. It basically is all the social media and different things from UPS to.
Hey, Kiki. AR wants you to drop in the StreamYard link again so you can switch
5.
devices.
Oh, sorry, AR. Yeah, I'll do that. Hey, you know what? While I didn't mean to scream that. Hey, while I have this comment up by Mish Girl, I want to tell her the premise that I was making this theory off of. So we were going by, we had thought BK was out there by then because Steve Gonzalez had given an interview where he said that he had been out there for almost a year. And we don't actually have confirmation when he went out there. The only thing we have to say that he hadn't been out there by June was a Reddit post from his mother saying that she's going to miss her baby when he goes. And it sounded like he was leaving soon. But I don't know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that we've actually confirmed the actual date BK was out there. And then furthermore, we have that statement from Steve Gonzalez, I think it was October of last year, around that time, or maybe within a few months of that, he gave that interview saying BK had been there for over a year. So I don't know. But that's the loophole I was working this theory under. So I just want to acknowledge your comment because I know you left it twice or something similar to it twice. 5, you've got the Tinder accounts for information relating to Kaylee from the 1st of January of 2021, 20 profiles linked to her account from 11/3/2022. All right. So if I go down to this first comment here, one of the things that the first people first noted is lots of focus on Kaylee here. 20 plus accounts connected to Tinder, her liked matches. So in comparison, to point out is the difference in the amount of social media activity that was actually warranted. So when it comes to Xana and Ethan, they
can you hear me?
30 some odd warrants pertaining to their social media. And then when it came to Maddie, she had around
not here.
20.
Yeah, you're here, brother.
Over 40.
So what about that guy that kept insisting that Bryan Kohberger, you guys bought his knife from him for $350?
This isn't me talking. This is some other. I don't know.
What about him? Okay. You know, so we're coming to the end of that. So
Can you hear? You good, AR?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
No problem.
you know, when we look at this, to be honest with you, Kaylee by far, you know, I shouldn't say by far, but Kaylee definitely has the most.
I think it is, Heather. Yeah.
Things requested.
I say it.
So I've always felt that it was Kaylee. There was a part of me that could never decide if it was Kaylee or Madison. Usually going to Kaylee. But I'm gonna say that Kaylee. I'm gonna definitely say that Kaylee was probably. She probably went on that Tinder date with that guy that treated her disrespectfully or whatever was said about that. I'd have to go back and remember what was said there.
So the reason I wanted to play It's a Crime Shame is another thing that came up is they asked for nearly 20 different profiles pertaining to Tinder. Now, what's not on the internet anymore is back in the day when this case first came out, it was said that Kaylee went on a Tinder date and it was so bad that she knew she wasn't going to go on a second date with them. The person allegedly called her a bitch and was calling women bitches and whores. And according to what we just heard from Annie Elise, that could be something that sounds awfully familiar. Okay, we're going to stop there because I just get into such speculation on this. So we're going to get into debunking this. Before I start dropping anything, I want to know if you guys can call me on any of my bullshit and everything I just played you for the last 5 minutes. Off the top of your head, that is.
Well, do we know if the house was really targeted or if there was an individual in the house targeted?
We don't. We just don't. Oh, there's the puppy. Hi, Yoda.
What do you think, brother?
That I don't think either way that's been confirmed. I'm sure maybe a trial they're going to have something to say about that, but we'll find out.
Yeah. So there's been a couple comments in here, and I think before I get into any of the legal stuff that I think could dismiss some of this, Gretchen was just following up with Mish Girl. He was there 3 months, she said, and I think that this is a really solid argument. So let me go back up to Mish Girl's second comment on this. I think BK's first hair appointment in Pullman was July 22nd. His last one was December 2nd, 2022, per his hairstylist's interview. BK wore his hair really short. We've seen quite a few pictures of him. We've never seen him looking like he hadn't cut his hair in 3 or 4 months. He just looks like someone who gets a haircut every 6 weeks to 2 months. And so she's got a good point. Anyway, it's not evidence, but that's pretty solid circumstantial evidence right there. That's a good comment. What I thought is what we can prove on this is several different things. Number one, we've heard right in open court, there is no connections to the victims. I do have a document here. It's called, the one that I'm going to be reading you one paragraph out of is called The Objection to the State's Motion for Protective Order. And that one was written on June 22nd of 2023. And I refer back to this one because there are bold statements made in this document that really the defense couldn't make if there were a connection to the victims. The other thing we can refer to is the statement that the G family made, which I will also play for you. But this statement emphatically says to a famous author, just along the lines of what you were saying, Robert. You were asking, is there a connection to the house? Was the house targeted? Was it an individual targeted? Well, this famous author decided he was, it was one particular person. And what the families had to say is, okay, that's great. Now, can you please show the evidence to Mr. Thompson? Because they're having trouble establishing any connection to the victims. So we know right there just isn't a connection. We also know that after the raid to the house in Pennsylvania, the additional search warrants sort of speak for themselves. The extensive search warrants when they found no connection. There were other things too. But because the next video I'm going to show you brings up literally mainstream media myths, I think it's worth playing that and then going in and doing all the debunking. And I think you guys might get a little angry when you hear this. We don't really hear mainstream media talk the way they do in the clip I'm about to show you. But yeah, I think you guys are going to be a little shocked when you hear this. So this is another video I made. This one's called IDAHO4 Media Speculations About
Breaking
Evidence.
news to report to you regarding the Idaho murder.
He had pictures of one of the female, and there are pictures of at least one of the victims in his photo roll. We don't know the details of those pictures. We don't know whether they are pictures he took from a distance. We don't know if they're pictures he downloaded from her social media, but he had pictures of one of the female victims on his phone.
And is anyone pointing to which one of the 3 female victims might be the one who's on his phone?
I mean, we all have our suspicions, and of course the cops certainly know, but that's not something that they're telling. You know, there's a gag order in place. They can't tell us all these details. But yes, it was one of the 3 female victims, and cops sure know who they are. You and I could guess all day, and we'd probably guess correctly, but we don't have that officially.
And of course, without even being able to name him, it's hard to push further to suggest, is that person potentially the target of all of this? Like, was there one person who was the target and maybe the other 3 ended up as collateral? Are they saying anything about that?
Well, before the second gag order came along, you know, we were getting, you know, you were getting it, I was getting it, we were getting these tips.
I don't know.
And, you know, I think that they had a pretty good idea, even back then, a month ago, of who the primary target was. Whether or not these pictures are of that person, who you and I both pretty much know, remains to be seen.
So what else did they get, or are you able to find out about from, you know, combing his photo rolls? Is there any other clue in there?
No, but it certainly seems as though he was, you know, he was very aware of what was going on in this house. We know that. You know, obviously, besides the photos, we already know that his phone just kept pinging from that area. So, you know, he'd been there several times. So I think the phone is going to be a real treasure trove of information for the investigators, not just from the pictures, not just from, you know, we don't know the texts he sent. We do know, as we talked about a few weeks ago, that he had reached out to one of the girls on Instagram. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of tracks there that they can look at, and, you know, tracks that I don't think that he covered.
There's one line in your exclusive where your source says it looked as though Kohberger was certainly, quote, paying attention to her. Were you able to read into that any further?
I think paying attention means something more than just, you know, noticing somebody. Paying attention means that you are, you know, purposefully and very deliberately, you know, keeping track of somebody, keeping track of who they are, what they're doing, that type of thing. So there was somebody who was on his radar for a while, and that person, that girl, was unfortunately one of the victims.
You know, all this time we've been trying to figure out the nexus between, you know, this alleged killer and these victims. And the only connection that so far can really be made is the fact that he's a vegan, mm-hmm. and Xana and Maddie both worked at the Mad Greek, which is one of the best vegan, you know, restaurants in that area of both Pullman and Moscow. So from what I've heard from my sources in Pullman, if you're a vegan in Pullman, you have been to the Mad Greek many times. It is one of your go-to places. Do we know if there's any connection to the 2 victims who worked at the Mad Greek, Xana and Maddie, and this photograph?
Sure. Well, what I would say is that, you know, we've reported about a month ago that he had been to the Mad Greek, and then the Mad Greek came out with a statement that basically said, you know, somebody is trying to cash in on 15 minutes of fame. I think referring to the former employee who had given that information up. You know, but they never, ever denied for sure that he was there. They just said somebody is, you know, somebody is trying to cash in on some fame here. So, you know, I think that we can pretty much surmise that, you know, the restaurant the phone, all of this type of stuff is something that police have looked into very, very carefully to make sure that they understand kind of the timeline of how did these girls, or at least how did one of these girls, get onto Bryan Kohberger's radar? And he did somehow, or she did somehow. Somehow he found her and targeted her allegedly. And so that was really, what the cops are looking at right now.
And then just one more clarity on your exclusive, and it's pictures plural, right? It's not just one picture. He had pictures plural of at least one victim.
Right. Then that could be 2. That could be 450. We don't know. We just know it's more than one. You can have a picture of somebody on your phone and not be fixated on that person. But more than one certainly means that, whether or not he took more than one, I'm the worst. When I take pictures of my food, I take 4 pictures of it. So, it could have been something like that, or it could be that he downloaded things from her Instagram or screenshotted things from her Instagram. So
that's the other thing, right? Because we don't know if it's downloaded or if they were actually.
You look kind of young there, Kiki.
Between that, well, at least they're not.
At least I know
they would
they're not telling us, but they certainly.
I said you look kind of young there.
Oh, in that picture?
Yeah.
Picture you take, it tells.
That. Yes, I was having a cute night. I want to stop there just because this is like really like I can't listen to this anymore. It's just it's like I feel like I'm pushing back against the point of this live stream by playing that. But I do want to point out all of the incorrect statements that were just made from what we heard. Number one, the whole point is we're segueing in from debunking Kaylee was at the Coug. So we're going to start there. He said they had pictures on the phone, plural. He said it could be 2, it could be 400, but more than one. That is something that we can debunk tonight. The targeting, we know now that there was no target. There's been one. I mean, that's the first one. We'll bring up Steve G's statement about the targeting that is our most recent targeting debunking. So let me write down, that'll be the first thing we bring up.
AR is having technical difficulties. He just texted me.
No, AR, well, if things work out, come back because we definitely want to hear your take on this. The other thing we want to get into is, well, it could be questionable. The pinging 12 times around the house, the phone being the treasure trove of evidence. I mean, that's something we can't debunk, but that is definitely a pretty bold statement. We have no information. Also, the Instagram account, he claimed there were direct connections to an Instagram account and that we have yet to have a confirmed Instagram account that is connected to the girls. And
I do have a question with the pings. Do we really know if it was around the house or just in the Moscow area?
Yeah, I don't think we know. I don't think we know without metadata overlays exactly where those pings were. They're pretty broad. So, but that's it's a great point. Like he brings that up. And then there are just a couple more that I heard in there that I thought were, so he also says, he doesn't use the term stalking, but he said that he was paying attention to one of the girls. We read the definition to stalking. Heather Fitzgerald provided it to the live stream. We were debunking the stalking last week.
Yeah.
And part of that is surveillance. So we kept saying, well, he could have been surveying the girls if he wasn't stalking them. And the law does state in the law that was provided that, and I can't talk right. The state of Idaho writes it that surveying is included in that. So I don't know what paying attention, if that was selective language he was using or what. And then the other one is said they had been on his radar for a while. And then and then back to the pics. He really went off about the pics. So what I was thinking of doing is I'm going to bring up 3 things to debunk this. We're going to first bring up the no stalking. And I have a small video clip. It's just going to be of one of the hearings. I got it off of Law and Crime Network. Any of you can go find it. After I show you that, I thought the best way to combat this person, this mainstream media guy, is to bring up Andrea Burkhart. and let her just debunk him. Before I bring up Andrea Burkhart, I'm going to read to you the one paragraph statement out of the objection to the state's motion for protective order, and then Andrea Burkhart will be the one to break it down and explain it a little better. But you'll see when you read these bold statements, how could the defense be putting this in their paperwork and have it still be true? They wouldn't be able to make statements like that. And yeah. All right, so let's get into it. Let's debunk. So we'll go back to the playlist, and
This is the most important.
It was Maddie who actually said that. So Maddie said it, and it was kind of like more.
Pause there. All right, so the video we're going to be watching is Bryan Kohberger's hearing erupts in a heated face-off along Crime Network.
Nothing that was done is worth the hysteria and the hyperbole that keeps getting expressed in this courtroom.
Bryan Kohberger's defense on the knife sheath matched Bryan Kohberger.
And the state's position is that the fact-specific questions, and I understand from Dr. Edelman why the questions are asked. I understand his explanation. It doesn't change the fact that we have a non-dissemination order that specifically prohibits that kind of dissemination of facts, specific facts about this case.
But there were questions that contained false information that really got the prosecutor mad, specifically when Bill Thompson cross-examined Dr. Bryan Edelman, who's conducting the survey. Take a look.
You acknowledge false that Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because.
But you knew that was false.
I did.
So we learned something new there. A couple of media outlets had reported that Bryan Kohberger stalked one of the victims in the months before the murders. The prosecutor now says that's not true. But back to the issue at hand. The prosecution believes Dr. Edelman's methods tainted the jury pool and violated the gag order. Things got a little spicy.
I'm sorry if your feelings get hurt about us raising this issue. I see you were almost breaking down a few minutes ago when you were talking about slide number 33 on slide number 31. That's not the intent, and it's certainly I'm surprised to see that reaction from an experienced expert such as yourself. So I apologize for that.
I accept your apology. But the idea of, after working really hard 15 years to develop a credible reputation and being told, watching on a Zoom, that I am tainting the jury pool and poisoning the jury pool and contaminating the jury pool by doing what's required and standard, I'm not crying. I'm angry. Okay. And yes, it doesn't matter.
And please go ahead and be as angry as you like as you continue your work with the defense in this case.
So you probably detected a little sarcasm there from the prosecutor. The defense, meanwhile, fighting back against the claim that their expert violated that non-dissemination order.
We didn't violate the non-dissemination order. You know, the information that now he's calling facts, you know, he's flip-flopping between whether or not it's a false fact or a fact that's in the survey. The information that was put in the survey is based on the public record and information, the way that the state and state actors put information into the public record that has now been disseminated. And we have not violated that order. And I do resent being accused of that.
But Judge John Judge said there were questions featured in the survey that included false information that may have been featured in media reports or on social media, but those were not discussed in an actual public document or record, and that concerned him.
I mean, those two questions were not in the public record. Okay. They were. I mean, they came out, but that was not the court. I mean, where it came from. It just came out of the media or somewhere. Who knows where it came from? But I don't think there's anything, not that I'm aware of, in the public record that said anything about that, about your client.
Dr. Edelman testified that he knew about the non-dissemination order.
Does the existence of the non-dissemination order change how you did your work?
No, it did not.
Have you worked in cases where there's a non-dissemination order at other times?
Many times.
And he said that just 3 to 4% of the people surveyed in Latah County didn't know about the case. The number of people in Latah County who did know about the case and had feelings about it was much, much higher.
Because we asked these questions, what we found is that one, like I said, very high recognition rate. So 79% of respondents knew at least 5 of these items. So the idea that we're undermining his due process rights, everybody knows all this stuff. It's very high rates. 82% of respondents who recognized 7 of these items or more reported that he's guilty, compared to if they only knew 2 or fewer, only 29% thought he was guilty. And the average was 6.2. So the average number of these details people already know, 6.2.
And Dr. Edelman explained that the information he included in his questions came from media reports and the affidavit filed in support of the murder charges, information that was already out in the public.
What I did, just want to be clear, is the standard practice in the industry, done hundreds of times in high-profile cases throughout this country. There's nothing I did to contaminate the jury pool. Everything I included was widely disseminated by the media in this county hundreds of times, if not more. And most of it came directly from an affidavit that the government released in a press conference and encouraged everyone to report.
Did I tell you what questions to ask?
You did not.
Would you take my advice if I told you what questions to ask?
I would not. And I'll tell you why. Is, as I mentioned, my role is to be an objective expert, to provide the court with information so the court can make a decision on if any remedial measures are necessary.
Okay. And we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves with the listening to the actual hearing. You just want to hear it all. Let's go back to the actual reason. It's the actual 10-second clip why we were watching this, which is the actual saying out loud in a court of law that BK wasn't stalking them. And then we're going to read the document.
Conducting the survey. Take a look.
You acknowledge false that Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because.
But you knew that was false.
I did.
So we learned something new there. A couple of media outlets had reported that Bryan Kohberger stalked one of the victims in the months before the murders.
I mean, it's not a
prosecutor now said
a couple of media outlets, though, right, Robert? It was like,
yeah.
a huge team. I mean, you remember that, right?
Yeah, quite a few media outlets were saying, "Oh, yeah." We even heard from Steve G. Oh, yeah, he stalked the victims. He stalked the victims, and then yet you have Bill Thompson. Oh no, he didn't stalk them.
Yeah, and going back to the clip that we were actually trying to debunk, I have this list here of the different things that we wanted to debunk out of it, and one of them was one of them was on his radar for a while, and he was paying attention to them, which sounds an awful lot like surveying, which in this definition of stalking, they were clearly getting at the legal definition of stalking. It doesn't fit it. I want to make sure that we're flowing and we're not like pausing on things. Let me bring up the defense's objection, the objection to the state's motion for protective order. And the person who clued me into this document was Too Fast for Fleas. He's one of my managing mods and he's in the chat now. So please make sure to say thank you. Hey, Too Fast. And make sure to say thank you to Heather too for all of her help tonight. And all right, so we're going to look at this line right here, this whole paragraph I'm just reading. So, and then we'll go back to the underlined line. No matter what came first, and again, this is Jay Logson who wrote this. No matter what came first, the car or the genetic genealogy, the investigation has provided precious little. There is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. There is no explanation for the lack of DNA evidence in the victims. From the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. But the point is, there is no connection to the victims. How could the defense make statements like that if they had?
Yeah, there's no connection.
If Keeley was at the Coug and met him there, I mean, the allegations were he was rejected by Keeley or Maddie that night that I had heard. that he had pictures on his phone. I mean, that sounds like it'd be a connection to the victim. So we're going to bring up Andrea Burkhart, who's going to explain this to us really quickly. And she does a great job. I have it, don't have it paused on where I need her. I guess I was listening to it. Let me just find the right spot because I don't want you guys to have to listen to it. Here we go.
Legal documents. It's boring, and I kind of prefer to just summarize and give you my take on it. In this particular case, this is a short summary. It's extremely well written. It gets right to the point. So I'm just going to go ahead and share it with you. On November 13th, 2022, law enforcement responding to a 911 call found Madison Mogan, Kaylee Consalves, Zena Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin deceased. Law enforcement later found a K-bar knife sheath placed next to Ms. Mogan on her bed. The sheath was placed button side down and partially under Ms. Mogan and the comforter. On November 20th, 2022, the Idaho State Police Lab in Meridian,
Why is this freaking
Idaho, located DNA on the button of the sheath and performed STR analysis that led nowhere when ran through CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, other than to show the provider was a male. By December 17, 2022, lab analysts were aware of 2 additional males' DNA within the house where the deceased were located, and another unknown male DNA on a glove found outside the residence on November 20th, 2022. To this date, the defense is unaware of what sort of testing, if any, was conducted on these samples other than the STR DNA profiles. Further, these 3 separate and distinct male DNA profiles were not identified through CODIS, leading to the conclusion that the profiles do not belong to Mr. Kohberger. While this was ongoing, police were investigating many various possible suspects. Many of them provided DNA. At least one had his DNA surreptitiously taken from a discarded cigarette. Many also had their phones taken and downloaded. One area of the investigation had to do with a white sedan seen on a camera located at 1112 King Road, first glimpsed by officers on November 18, 2022. By November 25, 2022, police believed the car to be a white Elantra and asked law enforcement to be on the lookout for one. Precisely how the police came to believe the car was an Elantra is still unknown. A report from an analyst for the FBI dated March 21, 2023, shows the analyst relying heavily on a video of a car heading in the wrong direction and at the wrong time on Ridge Road.
And this now the quote that I just read to you is coming up, and right after that she starts breaking it down. So, or I might fast forward to where she starts breaking it down. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you guys where we were at. It's the next thing.
The state's latest filing admits that somewhere within all of this, they engaged in investigative genetic genealogy using the DNA taken from the button on the sheath, and now claims that it was due to the use of this technique that it tipped local law enforcement to investigate Mr. Kohberger. It remains unclear what the police first relied on in focusing their investigation on Mr. Kohberger. No matter what came first, the car or the genetic genealogy, the investigation has provided precious little. There is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. There is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. In essence, through the lack of disclosure and their motion to protect the genetic genealogy investigation, the state is hiding its entire case. So we learned a lot in this very short 1.5 page summary of the facts here, but the key point, the big bombshell that jumps out at me here is in the second to last statement. There is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. They found no trace DNA in his car. Guys, I got to tell you, this is a big one. Now, I'm already expecting there's going to be a lot of absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. And that's a perfectly legitimate, logical proposition. But the problem is that when you are dealing with a circumstantial case, part of the strength of the inference that can be drawn from the evidence depends on it being inconsistent with alternative explanations. A lot of times when I'm doing jury selection with a jury and we're talking about the reasonable doubt standard and kind of what that means and how you apply that and stuff like that, I will propose as a working way of understanding how to go about that is, look, if there's a reasonable alternative explanation for a set of circumstances, then you haven't been convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the state's explanation is the only one that can be true. So being able to draw an inference from a sample of DNA, at this point, we understand, believe to be touch DNA on this button of a knife sheath, you know, the strength of the inference to be able to conclude that that identifies the killer, the person who wielded a murder weapon and committed these murders, is only so strong as the ability of the surrounding circumstances to confirm that inference. And so the problem is, absence of evidence kind of can be evidence when you would expect that evidence to be present under the circumstances, if that would be the reasonable situation given everything else that we know about this case. And given what we know about this case, 4 people were brutally stabbed in an extremely short period of time. This was a messy crime scene. The likelihood of being able to, commit all of these crimes, not leave your own DNA all over the scene, not trace any of the DNA that you are, sorry to be crude here, but kind of waiting in all likelihood, to not track that out to your car, not leave it on your car seats, not have it seep into the carpet, not be tracking it back into your home. This just is not a real highly probable sequence of events. You have to explain, how could this person be so careful to take care of all of these loose ends, but yet be so careless as to just happen to leave that little bit of touch DNA on the button of the knife sheath? So this is not a good development for the state's case at all. I remember when the probable cause affidavit was first released, surely there were mixed reactions to it. But my personal reaction was, there's something there. It's not the strongest case I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, but okay. Yeah, I'd buy that the circumstantial link here to suggest that it's Bryan Kohberger. But the real meat of the investigation was at that point only just going to begin. Now that they had the suspect, they're going to go seize his computers, seize his cell phones, go over this car with a fine-tooth comb, and if there is anything there for them to find, it's gonna wrap him up. That's just going to be such good corroboration that that's where the real meat of the state's case was going to need to come from. Well, what we learned in this page and a half here is that they haven't gotten any of that. Okay, not just the no DNA of the victims that got tracked back anywhere, but also no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. Guys, this sounds a lot like they found nothing on his devices. They didn't find anything on his cell phone or on his tower that showed that he was stalking these people, getting into their social media, had any knowledge or connection with them whatsoever. So that's another big, huge piece of the puzzle that's missing here, because we don't know how or why he would have identified these people. What possible steps could he have taken to identify them, locate them, surveil them, plan this attack, go through with the attack, cover up the attack, and just leave no trace of any connection with them at all? That's just very challenging. So What they have, of course, is this circumstantial evidence of his location that is largely created through this ping evidence on his cell phone. But again, the problem with there is, by their own acknowledgement in the probable cause affidavit, it's not a reliable indicator for where he is. They say themselves his phone is pinged off of these towers at times when they have reason to believe he wasn't actually present there. So that doesn't exactly give them a real solid basis to be able to draw inferences about what he was doing at what point, to kind of further solidify this connection that they are trying to build between him and these murders. I want to real quickly talk about some objections that I'm anticipating we will see to my take here, which is that, wow, this is kind of revealing that the state's case is massively falling apart here. Number one, well, he cleaned the car, right? We heard these reports around the time of his arrest, anonymously sourced, of course, that he had been seen out, scrupulously cleaning his car. The problem with that theory is that there is going to be evidence of that. And as this statement is written, it's not just that there isn't DNA, no DNA evidence in the car. It's that there's no explanation for it. So cleaning is typically going to leave some type of evidence. You're going to see that, like, oh, the carpet on the floorboard has been peeled back here because, you would need to be able to get in and clean under that. Blood will seep through. It will leave a residue that can be located. So you'd have to, essentially take most of the car apart to be able to get to that. That's going to leave some type of trace that doesn't appear to be the case.
I just want to add one little thing to what she's saying. When this was all going on, Gia and I saw like this whole thing on how they look for DNA in cars, and it's things that you'd really have to destroy your car to get all that DNA. So just think of one thing, like if you pull your safety belt over you like that trace DNA goes back into the safety belt and all into that compartment. There's just so many little things like that when it comes to, it's so nearly impossible to clean trace DNA out of a car. I will say though, there is an expiration date on it too, untouched DNA. So I'll shut up because obviously you guys probably want to listen to Andrew Burkhardt.
Case here. Likewise, cleaning chemicals. If you're just out there, with a wet rag trying to wipe this stuff up, you're not going to get it all. There's going to be trace there. So it's likely that somebody who is trying to cover up the existence of evidence like this, they're going to use something. They're going to use bleach. They're going to use ammonia. They're going to use some type of chemical to try to destroy any DNA that would remain. That as well is going to leave residual traces. They're going to be able to say, well, we didn't find any DNA, but we sure found a whole lot of bleach residue. That would be circumstantial evidence of consciousness of guilt. So I would expect that the state would be raising that if that's the case. And then the last thing that often comes up in situations like these is you can literally actually see white marks. Okay. When somebody is in there with, again, the wet rag and, just kind of smearing stuff around, no matter how hard you try to dry it up and polish it and stuff, chances are pretty good that you're not going to get all of the grime and everything out of a, 8-year-old car that has sifted through the carpet for all that time and stuff like that. You're not going to get it pristine. And so what's left is going to show marks from having, wiped something over it, little smears and stuff like that. It's very common to find. That would, again, be an explanation for why there is no DNA evidence found in the car. But apparently that doesn't exist based on this representation that we're getting in this sentence here. Another objection I expect to see, this is just the defense's version of things. The everybody lies except the FBI defense. Well, I don't buy this for a lot of reasons. Now, certainly when you're a defense lawyer, you are going to present the facts in the way that is beneficial to your client, beneficial to your position. So you kind of expect there to be a little bit of polemic, a little bit of painting things in a light that is just favorable to your client. And Mr. Logsdon in particular has something of an aggressive style with his writing. I actually like it a lot. I find it very direct, to the point. You don't have any trouble understanding where he stands on something. At the last hearing, the gag order hearing, I actually ran into Mr. Logsdon in the hall after the fact and told him I enjoyed and appreciated his writing style. So yeah, there is a certain amount of, I suppose, flexibility that maybe you should expect when you're reading an argument from the defense counsel. But of course, as we heard, the defense counsel has a duty of candor to the court. You are not well served by misrepresenting the situation to the court, because they're going to find out. This would be a very stupid position to sort of make up out of the blue, because the state is going to be able to come in and correct that and point out to the court, here is the evidence that we have of DNA in the vehicle. Here is the evidence we have of why there's no DNA in the vehicle. So this is incorrect. And now, Mr. Logsdon's credibility as an advocate to the court is completely shot because he made the stupid decision to overstate his case. Because of that, I tend to find this pretty reliable. You don't take a hard position as an experienced criminal defense attorney unless you're able to back it up. So I don't know if we're going to get a written reply from the state before this whole thing goes into the hearing on Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to keep an eye out on it. But certainly, if you hadn't guessed, yeah, I'm going to be there Tuesday afternoon. Was planning on it anyway, but I very much am going to need to see this argument and how this all goes down with my own two eyes. So another possibility there that Mr. Thompson could just be prepared to argue orally why he thinks this characterization maybe is too strong or maybe is inaccurate. But if he doesn't do that, well, then that is kind of what in the law you call an adoptive admission, a situation where you would expect somebody to deny it if that weren't the case. So going to be very interesting to see how Mr. Thompson responds to this allegation in the coming days. This is probably the most critical new information that has come to light in this case since the gag order was initially entered. The fact that there's other DNA, male DNA found at the scene that can't be accounted for, and the fact that there's no other link, none, besides what we've already seen in the probable cause affidavit that links Mr. Kohberger with these victims. None of his DNA on them, none of their DNA anywhere we would expect it to be with this type of a crime. This is huge information, and it really indicates that the state's case is kind of falling apart here. Not only do we just have the basic evidence that was in the probable cause affidavit all the way back at day one, but we're also seeing that PC affidavit itself is kind of starting to crumble. We've got concerns now about additional, investigative steps that may or may not have been taken, problems with how the car was identified. We already knew there was going to be, a hitch in the road with that disclaimer in the search warrant affidavit in Whitman County. I'm not going to let that one go, guys. The whole, we're disclosing this DNA evidence for the court's information, but specifically asking you not to rely on it. There is no legal reason to do that unless you have a concern of illegal activity. You can rely on information that's wrong or evidence that's bad that just happens, you relied on it in good faith, but it just turns out to be incorrect. Police do that all the time. That will still authorize a search. It won't invalidate it. Illegal activity is what invalidates a search warrant. So still more little things that are kind of lurking in the wings, waiting to pop up and potentially cause problems for the narrative that is out here that Bryan Kohberger is obviously guilty. It must be him. There's a very strong case, and so on and so forth. And so in light of how significant this new information is, I think it's going to be really critical to see in the coming days who in the media reports it and how do they report it? How honestly are they going to be in incorporating this new bit of information into their analysis of the case. I think that's going to tell us a lot about what is really driving the media focus here, an interest in justice or a narrative that's already been predetermined. So I'm going to be watching. Guys, I'm also going to be in court on Tuesday to watch this hearing. No way I'm going to miss it at this point. So I'll be back to let you know kind of what I take away from that process, and continuing to follow up with the other developments in this case. So stay tuned, stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.
Wow, wasn't that an incredible segment, Robert? You with me, Robert?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, it was an incredible segment.
I mean, just like, the way that she speaks with ease and confidence about the defensive strategy and what he's saying in there, she's basically saying, Jay wouldn't risk saying these things if they weren't accurate. He's making incredibly bold statements, and he can't make statements like that and have them not be accurate. I think that's a powerful thing to hear from her. So, but as far as now, just to remind everyone, we were debunking a series of things that we heard from that first initial guy, and I'm going to go over them again because there's one last thing. If we haven't debunked this for you with the court documents, with the Andrea Burkhart debunking everything, then I'm going to play you one last thing which will help you grasp this. But let me remind you of what we were just debunking. We were debunking Kaylee's the connection to BK meeting Kaylee and Maddie at the Coug on Kaylee's 21st birthday. We were also debunking pictures on BK's phone. We were debunking that one person was targeted. We were debunking the Mad Greek restaurant, which we did last week. But just to reiterate, the Mad Greek is not a vegan restaurant. They have one vegan dish. And the owner didn't just say, the owner adamantly came out and said that he had not been there, and he wasn't preventing his employees from talking to media. They just decided as a community not to do so. And he said that the one person that did say that was definitely looking for 15 minutes of fame. The thing is those mainstream media sources, even with the owner of that bar, of that restaurant saying that, they still wanted to run with the story, which I think is crazy. And then we also had the Instagram connection, that BK was following the girls on Instagram. That has been proven in open court to not be true. There still is no connection. And then the reporter also said that he was paying attention to one of them and he was on their radar for a while. Well, that can't be true because we know the definition of stalking. And, let me take Jeff's comment down. Sorry about that, Jeff. So there's one last thing that I thought I'd show you guys that, I didn't take the comment down, that I thought would be really good for debunking. And we have quite a few more of these, you guys, but I don't know how much more of these I can get through. I'm getting really tired. So, sorry. All right, let me go back to our little playlist here. Oh, come on. Let's get back to our playlist. Actually, no, we're not going to go to the playlist. Let me go to my videos. And we're going to scroll down to this one called IDAHO4, new book in Amazon Prime series, Maddie and Ethan's families speak out. Let me pull up this article for you. And we're going to go right to the end. And what we're looking at is a current statement, or fairly current statement. This was put out in June by the Gonzalez family on the Gonzalez family Facebook page. And this is going to debunk for the last time out of the mouths of one of the parents, there is no connection. And this was actually pushback on a major author telling him, if you've got some evidence, you need to present it to Bill Thompson because he's having trouble finding a connection. So we're talking about something that is only a few months old. It kind of differentiates what we're talking about in terms of books. So I'm going to go to Discord. Let me read this to you. Let me minimize it. Okay. From Steve Gonzalez, Andrew Meyer. Hello, Andrew. Thank you for this opportunity. We have one primary question regarding Bloom's book. What evidence supports the theory that BK was focused on Maddie May. In our recent meeting with the prosecution team, they expressed difficulty in establishing direct connections between BK and the victims. If Bloom has stumbled across some substantial evidence, please get in touch with Thompson and share it promptly. We are collaborating with a digital forensics company to strengthen these connections. Meanwhile, the court's reliance on outdated gag order is proving ineffective, as seen with Bloom's book and the true crime communities shaping these new narratives and expectations. It is the prosecution's responsibility to represent the unembellished truth without any fictional elements. And their task becomes increasingly difficult with each passing day, I'm sure it's supposed to say. We no longer live in a world where media is centralized on black and white televisions run by ABC networks, run by the ABC networks. Today, people can access countless points of view from all over the world. Most of these content providers are not under the control of any courtroom. Let's hope Judge wakes up and starts being proactive in addressing this situation. Thank you for your time and efforts in this case, Steve Gonzalez. And it's a particularly important thing to read, since we all just listened to a world-class professor teach us that acronym WSCA. That's all I got for you today. We have 54 comments. I want to hear the world-class author give her thing. Probably a mistrial.
So my advice is, whatever you think you know, make sure you understand that you may not have all the facts you need to make the case you're trying to make. There's a cognitive error, which has a terrible name, Wisiati, but it's what you see is all there is. In other words, you may have a collection of facts, like the Garber case that I just talked about. You get the notion that these are all the facts there are, and then you spin your case off of that, and then we find out there's all this other stuff that you didn't put into your case that's also part of the picture, and it changes the picture. So thinking that you have all the facts is probably the number one mistake that I see among the writers in true crime. They think they have all the facts and everything they need to make the case, and they don't. So always be cautious and always make sure there's evidence backing what you have to say, not just speculation that sounds good. Because a case that you think is good enough isn't the same thing as really actually a good case. And so I would say be careful. Research, run down leads, talk to people involved as much as they'll talk to you, and get a solid sense of what it is you're writing about. Don't be hasty. I think part of it is people want to rush to judgment. They want to get their podcast or their book or their article or whatever out there as fast as possible, and they make mistakes along the way.
Okay, so we'll pause there. Just a cultural question, maybe best practices, that money seems to beat out everything. There is one more thing I had to add to this segment. I'm sorry. When I was talking about Howard, okay, we will stop there. And I mean, I think, whoa, probably should add this to the screen. I think that this is probably a good place for us to, let me stop that. I think that's kind of a good place for us to end tonight, Robert. I have a handful of other things, you guys, but just to let you know, we debunked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We debunked almost 12 different myths, mainstream media myths about the IDAHO4 tonight. And I'm really happy. I think, 2 hours we can fit a lot of debunking in, and we have a lot more. I want to say I had an incredible debunking. Okay, let me start over. There were some people who provided some tips for me to debunk in the last program, and it was really, really cool. And I'm working on one that I'm going to present to you. I don't know. I'm going to probably do another one of these live streams for debunking in the next 24 to 48 hours, because I've been working on one that was recommended to be by Not Your Average Joe. We have a couple more. And so please, if you have any ideas for myths that we'd like to debunk, things that you've debunked, you want to share with us, please write them down. Leave us in the I can't freaking talk straight. Yep. Please leave it in the comments of the live chat. And not only will we take your suggestion, but we'll research it and we'll verify your information. But yeah, we'd love to know what you want to see debunked in the show, because we are viewer driven here at Swamp Rose channel and Robert with True Crime podcast. So Robert, what do you have coming up this week? Tell the folks.
Well, I've been kind of working on a couple of videos I haven't put out yet. One is about Delphi, and the 14th of next month I will be streaming the Delphi trial.
Wow. I didn't even know. I don't know anything really what's going on with that. So I know it's a huge case though, Robert. So I'm glad you're covering it, giving it attention. But yeah, I will be streaming the trial next month. And however long the trial lasts. But one of the videos that I'm putting out is going more in depth on the murder of Sonia Massey and the cop that basically murdered her. And it will be the body cam of the cop that night. Now, I did a live stream about it the other night, but I managed to find the actual raw body cam. So I'll be coming out with that later on tonight. Yeah, I had Maven on the panel the other night when I did the live stream. Yeah, Maven popped in and came on panel for a little bit. But oh wait, hold on a second. I love Maven, by the way. I'm glad you're giving her a shout out. I love catching a Maven live. She has such fun shows. Hey, Robert, somebody's saying in the chat they're not sure if Delphi is going to have cameras in the courtroom. Do you know? From what I heard, they will have cameras in the courtroom. Well, we're going to have to stay tuned for that, because that's a big deal. There's so many people who are interested in that case. They really should make sure that they're showing the inside of the courtroom for the people. Yeah. Echoes of Clarity says Delphi is such a mess. Yep. We've got everybody in the chat. I mean, right now, the biggest thing is everyone's talking about the 8-hour gap between the 911 call and the atrocities. And Gretchen says, I love that picture of Bryan with the champagne glass. Do you know what she's talking about? No, I don't. I haven't seen that one yet. Okay, well, I'm Googling it. Okay, P. Fox says no cameras in Delphi. I wonder if they're going to have something alternative, like on Bryan Kohberger champagne. Whoops, I could spell right. Champagne glass. Yeah, nothing's coming up. Have you guys seen this picture? Well, anyway, I'd like to see that if anyone can. So before I let you go, thank you for sharing what's going on. Robert, thank you for coming back up. I missed my streaming, buddy. I'm glad you decided to cover some IDAHO4 again. Yeah, I put out a video yesterday. I recorded it like 4 days ago and kind of forgot about it, so I went ahead and put it out. And
I have like 3 or 4 videos right now on my computer that I've kind of forgot about. So I'm going to be putting them out here in the next couple of days.
I know the feeling. I have so many. I literally am working on editing 5 videos right now. I mean, 3 of them are shorts, but it's like I have all this footage I filmed, and then you just want to put them out because you don't want them to get dated, like, and stale. I know what you're feeling. But anyway, I wanted to tell you something. So Trisha's in the chat. We're going to do a live stream tomorrow at 1. I believe it's on her channel. I have to. Anyway, so stay tuned for that. I'll be posting it on my channel, but we're going to be doing a live stream there. And then I'll post my next debunking. I think I'll probably try to do it tomorrow, but it'll only be if my schedule permits. And if it doesn't, I'll definitely be doing that on Saturday at some point, because I have like 5. And like I said, I really want to get to Not Your Average Joe's comment, because he put a lot of effort into it, and I actually got some things to back up what he told me. So again, if you guys have things you want us to debunk, please leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat. I have a great set of managing mods. I have great creators I work with, and I have resources. So maybe if you can't debunk something, maybe the great people that we work with can help debunk it. So
yeah, for the next week, I'll be indisposed for panels or live streams because my wife's birthday is not tomorrow, but the following Friday. So I'm going into birthday planner mode.
Well, is she listening right now?
No, she came in long enough to say, "Hey, show the puppy." As I showed the puppy, she goes, "Okay, good night."
Yeah, because she knew if she didn't do that, you'd be waking her up because I wanted to see the damn puppy. So she knows. It's like a preemptive thing. Why can't I find my tribute video? This is weird.
But yeah, I'm planning. I'm making her birthday cake, and my 9-year-old says, "Daddy, I know what I want mommy's cake to be." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Minions."
Yeah, of course she wants Minions for her mommy.
So yeah, I'm going Monday to see if Walmart has a cake pan in the shape of a minion, and then I'm also going to buy charcoal, lighter fluid, because my wife wants me to make my famous barbecue ribs.
You make them on a charcoal grill?
Yeah, and it's and see, when I cook ribs, I cook like a slab of ribs on my grill.
Mags says her birthday's coming up a week from Friday. Happy birthday, Mags.
Same day as my wife's.
Oh, that's so funny. Mags, maybe you've got the vibe. What should Robert get her for her birthday?
All right.
You already know what you're getting her. The minion cake.
I already know what I'm getting her. Something she's been complaining about. About 3 years ago, I was taking a friend of mine from Wichita to Indianapolis to pick up at that time his girlfriend. Well, on the way back from Indiana, we were traveling through Missouri, and there was a tornado siren going off. So I jump out of the vehicle and run up to this random house to see to ask them where the storm shelter was. Well, when I was running up to the house, and it was raining, and I tripped over a garden hose and went flying into the front yard. My wedding ring came off in the front yard, and I couldn't find it. So now I'm walking around without a wedding ring. My wife has a wedding ring, but I don't. And and she looks at me today. She goes, "Honey, I know what I want you to get." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "A wedding ring for yourself."
Oh, I thought you were gonna say a tattoo on your wedding finger.
I'm like, "Well, why, honey?" She goes, "Because I'm tired of." She said, because I'm tired of women looking at you and looking at your ring finger." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll get a wedding ring."
Robert, you can like they make like these like you can just go on to just buy something like. I know you're saying. I'm gonna say my saying, then Robert's gonna say his comeback. So I'm gonna say happy wife, happy life. Robert, what's your saying?
Happy house, happy spouse.
But my point is this: is how hard is it to spend, you know, $11 on Amazon, get a pack of like freaking 10 rubber engagement. You know what I mean? Like they sell, like you can buy rings on Amazon that are like if you do construction or you do work outside, they're like made out of rubber. So if your finger gets caught in equipment, you don't lose your finger. But they're only like $11, and then you can match them to your outfit. Da 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 da. Gretchen,
Well, I already got the ring ordered. She had me order it from Amazon. It's a tungsten ring.
Nice. Yeah, those rings they can be very beautiful. The filigree and stuff on them. Very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, she asked me. She asked me what color I want. I said black. So she's gonna have a gold wedding band. I'm gonna have a black wedding band. She asked me why black. She asked me. She goes, "Honey, why black?" And I'm like, "So it can represent the life sentence I'm serving right now."
God, Robert, stop. Can you come up with, just come up with a few lines, and when you can't say anything nice, you grab the list. Don't say that anymore. Hey, while we're hanging out, do you want to go grab the snake so we can see it?
No, he's in the middle of shedding.
Okay,
I
never
tried
mind.
to grab him earlier, and he's when his eyes are clouded over, he can't really see. So when I went to grab him earlier, he kind of struck at me.
Oh, poor snake. I always wonder, how often do you take the snake out of the box? Like, I always worry he doesn't have enough time outside.
I take him out on a regular basis, and like my wife's gotten to the point where when I first got him, she wouldn't touch him, didn't want him anywhere near her. And now when I take him out, she wants to hold him, and then she'll hold him for maybe about 10 seconds, and she'll be like, "Okay, you can have Kylo back."
That's funny. Well, I don't blame her. I mean, it's instinctual. You're born with two instincts. What is it? No, actually, you're born scared of snakes. So I was going to say you're born with the fear of falling, the fear of snakes, but there's one more. You also are born with the fear of loud noises. So there's three things, and one of them is snakes. You're born scared of snakes instinctually. Over it.
My 9-year-old, she's not scared of him. She holds him. The only thing she's scared of is spiders and monsters under her bed. She thinks there's monsters under her bed.
Wow. She's so cute. So you guys, that's going to be it for the debunking tonight. We do have a lot more, but I'm not going to be able to get through any more on the list. I just wanted to end with a tribute video. I just feel like when we do these live streams, ending with some pictures in memorial to the victim kind of grounds us, it balances us, it brings us back to the center of why we actually talk about this case. And it's because of these victims, and it's because of how vibrant, beautiful, and how much potential they had, and what good members of our community they were going to be. So I'm going to play this tribute for our four fallen, and thank you so much for everyone showing up tonight and helping me with this mainstream media debunking of mainstream media myths. So with that, let me play this video.
Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez,